Hello to all of you wonderfully killy people. Welcome to Let's Get Critical. My name is Gar. Here is the roster screen for the kill team Wolf Scouts. There are three types of kill team really. You have elite kill teams, standard kill teams and horde kill teams. The Wolf Scouts are an elite kill team. They have 6 models to select from. One of them is a wolf, which is very much a standard operative with a 2 APL, 5 upsave and 9 wounds. And the other 5 of them are Space Marines in Phobos armor, and they have 3 APL, 3 upsaves and either 13 or 14 wounds. You could say essentially that they're a 5.5 model kill team, but for the purposes of the kill grade scoring system, they're a 6 operative kill team. The Fenrisian Wolf Operative is a mandatory choice, and it has a fixed weapon loadout. It has a melee weapon called Fangs, and then you're left with a choice of 5 Wolf Scouts operatives from the following list. You have Pack Leader, Fangbearer, Frosteye, Gunner, Trapmaster, Rune Priest, Skjald and Hunter. Other than Hunter Operative, your kill team can only include each operative on the list once. Now if you play using the Approved Ops Mission Pack, then you get to choose your TAC op from either Recon or Seek and Destroy. But if you play using the Preliminary Ops in the core book or the Kill Team Light rules on the app, then you don't have to worry about those. Next, we're going to look at the faction rules for the Wolf Scouts kill team. We have 2 faction rules to look at for the Wolf Scouts kill team. They are Elemental Storm and Hunting Astartes. Wolf Scouts faction rule Elemental Storm. Strategic Gambit. Remove your storm marker from the kill zone if any, then place it in the kill zone. Whenever an operative is within 6 inches horizontally of your storm marker, it's within your storm. Each friendly Wolf Scout operative can perform the charge action while it has a conceal order if it starts and or ends that action within your storm. So this is actually, quite big, and it gives the Wolf Scouts kill team a hell of a lot of power. You have like a 20mm marker, which is your storm marker, and it has like a 6-inch radius. So all the way around, so, it's a really big effect area. It's over 12 inches. I think it's 12.78 inches. I mean, that can easily cover your territory objective and your center objective. I mean, it's massive, it's huge. Now, like I say, when any of your Wolf Scouts operatives are in there, they're deemed as being within storm, and any of your Wolf Scout operatives can perform the charge action if they start that action or end that action within your storm. So if they're outside of it and come charging in, they end the action inside the storm, so they can do that with a conceal order. If they're inside the massive radius and charge at an enemy operative outside and go outside the storm radius, well, because they were in the storm when they started the charge, they can have a conceal order. I mean, it's really, really strong. And this is exceptionally strong for an elite kill team as well. And this elite kill team has some really hard-hitting weapons, some really hard-hitting melee weapons that can severely punish your opponent's mistakes if you don't take into account, if they don't take into account that your operatives, can do this. Now, this is a really, really strong faction rule. I've played it in about half a dozen games. I'm going to give this a maximum score of 5 out of 5. You really should learn it, practice it, and enjoy playing it because it's really, really strong. Wolf Scout faction rule, Hunting Astartes. Wolf Scout faction rule, Hunting Astartes. During each friendly Wolf Scout operative's activation, it can perform either 2 shoot actions or 2 fight actions. If it's 2 shoot actions, 1 additional AP must be spent for the second action if both actions are using a plasma gun or plasma pistol, and you cannot select 2 psychic ranged weapons. Each friendly Wolf Scout operative can counteract regardless of its order. Whenever it does so within your storm, you can change its order first or change its order instead of performing an action. For the latter, still treat it as having counteracted this turning point. So the Astartes faction rule is very similar to lots of this Hunting Astartes faction rule is very similar to lots of other Astartes rules. Shooting or fighting twice during the same activation is in every other Astartes rule that I've played with. You have an extra AP to shoot twice with certain weapons. That's obviously the same in quite a few as well. In this case, it's the plasma gun or the plasma pistol. So be careful moving with operatives armed with those weapons, because it costs you 3 APL to shoot twice instead of 2 APL. So essentially, if you move, you can shoot once, you then can't shoot a second time. And you cannot select 2 ranged psychic weapons either. Now, it's only the Rune Priest Skjald, it's only one of the operatives that has any psychic weapons at all. So make sure you choose the best weapon for, you know, the circumstances, because you can't perform the shoot action twice, you know, with another weapon in the same activation. And finally, when your Wolf Scout operatives are counteracting, any of them can counteract regardless of their order. This includes the Space Marines and the Wolf as well. And if they are within your storm, then they can change their order before counteracting, or you can just change the order and then pass on any further actions during the counteract. That's really, really strong as well. Being able to actually, you know, change your order and then just pass is really, really strong. That you need to learn how to get the most out of that. It's good fun to play with. So this to me is a very strong version of the Astartes rule. I don't think it's as strong as the Deathwatch and their veteran Astartes rule, where it lets you do an extra AP action when counteracting, but it's definitely stronger than the standard Angels of Death Astartes. I mean, there are quite a few of these Astartes rules around. Now, the ability to change your order when you're within Storm is, like I said, really useful as well. It makes this kill team a lot of fun to play. And remember, your Storm covers an area of like just over 12 inches. That takes up a hell of a lot of the kill zone. And I've had several games where I changed, say, my gunner operative from conceal to engage, and then used the plasma gun during his counteract to light up some enemy operatives that my opponent had kind of left out in the open thinking they were safe. And there were other times when I'd left some of my operatives on an engage order because it was like my last activation, and then in my first counteract I just flipped them to conceal and they were left safe and sound behind some terrain. So it's great how Games Workshop keep making variations of these Astartes rules, and I think this one is another thumbs up to them. It's got a really good theme, it's fun to play, and it keeps your opponents guessing. I'm going to score this a maximum 5 out of 5. There are loads of gaming combinations you can do with this, so take your time, practice it, learn it, and obviously have some fun in the kill zone. Now that brings us to the end of the faction rules. We've seen 2 very, very strong maximum scoring rules for this kill team. Now let's look at each of the operatives in the Wolf Scouts kill team. Wolf Scout Pack Leader. He's 3 APL, 7-inch move, 3 up save and 14 wounds. He has a fixed loadout. His weapon system, his ranged weapon is a plasma pistol. Obviously the standard profile is 4 attacks hitting on 3s, 3-5 damage, rage 8 inches and piercing 1. And the plasma pistol supercharged profile is 4 attacks hitting on 3s, 4-5 damage with range 8, hot, lethal 5 up and piercing 1. And for the melee option, he's got the power weapon, which is 5 attacks hitting on 3s, 4-6 damage and lethal 5. So he's generally much like a, you know, the Phobos sort of Marines, not the full Marine. I think he's got like an extra wound or 2, but the 3 APL 7-inch move is great, fantastic. I mean, 3 up saves, he's got fantastic core stats. You know, really, the plasma pistol is always a good option, and the power weapon solid as well. I mean, he's essentially just a Space Marine. There's nothing, you know, amazing there or stand out from any of the other Space Marines in Kill Team, but he does have 2 unique rules, which we'll look at just now. His first rule is called Lupine Guile. Once per battle, when rolling off to decide initiative, if this operative is in the kill zone, you can re-roll your dice. So the rule is very simple and it's really effective as well, and I've used mine in practically every single game I've played. It didn't always work, but it was always nice to have another go at winning the initiative. It's great when you like roll a 1 and your opponent rolls a 2 and you think, right, I'm going to go again, it's a no-brainer. But sometimes when you say roll a 3 and your opponent rolls a 4 and you're really desperate to win the initiative, you think, okay, let's give it a go, and then you roll a 2 and fail. So all I can give my advice on this is not to save it, you know, until like the end. Make sure that the first time you have a good chance of winning, just take it and win the initiative, because it doesn't, you know, turning point 1's really tough, but turning point 2, 3 or 4, it doesn't matter. If you've got a chance to take it, go for it. So if your opponent rolls like a 3 or less, and you know, and still wins, then obviously I wouldn't wait any longer, I'd just go there. I mean, it's nice to have, though it doesn't always win. I think maybe adding 2 to the initiative roll might be better, but it's great fun to play anyway. That's the Lupine Guile. And next he's got another unique rule called Grizzled Veteran. The first time this operative would be incapacitated during the battle, if it's not incapacitated, has 1 wound remaining, and cannot be incapacitated for the remainder of the action. All remaining attack dice are discarded, including yours if this operative is fighting or retaliating. So this kill team doesn't have a standard medic. It has an operative, which we'll get to a bit later on, that can heal other operatives, but it doesn't have the ability, you know, to bring back any of them from death like a standard medic would. This rule allows your pack leader to be brought back from the dead and left, you know, where it was in the kill zone with 1 wound remaining, and then the action ends even if both players have got unresolved attack dice. I mean, it's kind of simple enough, like you'd find with other medic rules. Now it works obviously against range attacks or whether fighting and retaliating, so it's really good having this built into your pack leader. Now I've used this like in every single game I've played except the second game because I forgot, and I put the pack leader back into his little storage box, so please don't make the same silly mistake as I did. Overall, I'm going to score the pack leader a maximum 5 out of 5. Its rules are just really strong and makes this operative an auto include in my opinion. Regardless of what other operatives you choose, I think personally you should always take this one. Wolf Scout's Fangbearer, 3 APL, 7-inch move, 3 up save and 13 wounds. It has a ranged weapon called Absolver Pistol, 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 4/5 damage, range of 9 inches, piercing crits 1, and he has a combat blade, which is 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, 4/5 damage. So he has very much the same core stat lines as the pack leader, -1 wound. His pistol isn't a plasma pistol, it's the Absolver pistol, which is obviously, it is still very decent. And the combat blade, you see all these a lot in the scout squad. You know, there's a way to buff these up. These combat blades do get a bit tougher, but every one of them, I think, except for the wolf, the pack leader, and the Rune Priest have got different weapons, but all the rest of them have got combat blades. Okay, the combat blade, you know, it's a very decent weapon. I mean, the 5 attacks, it's just a very solid, very, very good weapon. It's not decent, it's very good. Now, the Wolf Scout Fangbearer has got 1 unique rule, and he has a unique special action as well. So first we're going to look at the rule. It's called Spiritual Chirurgy. Now, you can ignore any changes to the stats of friendly Wolf Scout operatives, excluding Fenrisian Wolf, from being injured, including their weapon stats. Friendly Wolf Scout operatives, excluding Fenrisian Wolf, are not affected by enemy operatives' shock and stun weapon rules, and you can ignore any changes to their APL stat. Note that friendly operatives have these rules if you select this operative for the battle, even if it's incapacitated later. So this rule, to me, is super powerful. I mean, listen up. If you take the Wolf Scout's Fangbearer operative, then your whole kill team cannot be affected by the +1 to hit weapon stat change, or from the -2 move stat change when you're injured. I mean, it essentially means that they can't get injured. You still have to give them an injured token, but you don't have to take the effect, so you just carry on as normal. They also can't be affected by weapons in your opponent's kill team like shock or stun. The shock or stun, which doesn't work on them, and their APL stat cannot be reduced by anything at all, so they will always be 3 APL. So stun grenades and things are useless as well. This applies to every single, you know, model in the even if the Wolf Scout Fangbearer gets killed during the match, is incapacitated, even in the first turning point, all of the operatives get those benefits for the rest of the match. This Spiritual Chirurgy, to me, is so absolutely brilliant, it's unreal. This rule alone means that this operative is another auto include in your kill team selection, but it does have another rule which we'll go through now. Healing Bombs. It's a special action. It costs 1 action point. Select 1 friendly Wolf Scout operative within this operative's control range to regain up to D3 + 3 lost wounds. This operative cannot perform this action while within control range of an enemy operative. So this special action to me is nowhere near as powerful as like the other unique rule, but it's still sometimes quite strong. The only thing I've found when playing my games and taking the Fangbearer operative was that having to move into another operative's control range, or having that operative moving to the Fangbearer's control range, having to be within each other's control range before it was activated, was quite a bit of a hassle. Now, if you have a Wolf Scouts operative, in combat with an enemy operative, now you can move behind it so you're within control range of your operative, and then that operative's in combat with someone else. You can still move in behind it as long as the Fangbearer operative isn't within an inch of the enemy operative. That's fine. You can still do it. But essentially, it's a lot more awkward than the standard kind of 6 inches invisible to rule that's found in most other kill teams. This one, you have to get your models together in control range. But you do have the option of healing your friendly operatives. If they fail to kill the targets and they're left trapped in the enemy control range with just a few wounds remaining, in your next activation, you can just come up behind and obviously heal them. And also be careful of blast weapons as well. It happened to me once. Obviously thought it was dead clever, forgot that he had a blast, and he hit me with a blast weapon. So you've set them up nicely for a blast attack if you're not careful. So it's a little bit trickier to play than most of the other healing special actions that you've got in other, kill teams with other operatives. Now, I'm going to score this Fangbearer a massive 5 out of 5 personally. Other people don't seem to appreciate his spiritual Kyrgi rule that much, but I think it's just massively powerful that the whole kill team's affected by it. It makes your kill team really hard to slow down, and it keeps their weapons hitting hard, for as long as they can. I'm personally going to give him a 5 out of 5. Wolf Scout, Frosteye. 3 APL, 7-inch move, 3 up save, and 13 wounds. His ranged weapon's called the Instigator Bolt Carbine and has 2 weapon profiles. The heavy profile is 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, 3-4 damage, heavy, dash only, piercing, crits 1, and silent. The Instigator Bolt Carbine mobile profile is 4 attacks hitting on 3s, 3-4 damage, piercing, crits 1, and silent. And the melee option is Combat Blade. It's 4 attacks hitting on 3s with 4-5 damage. So this guy has obviously got quite a good gun. As you'll probably notice, the guys with good guns, you've got the Frosteye and the Gunner, they have 4 attacks on their Combat Blade. The other operatives have got 5 attacks. But he's got the same kind of standard profile. His Instigator Bolt Carbine is very much a standard, sniper gun that we find in many kill teams. The heavy profile, dash only, but it hits on 2s. And then obviously the mobile profile is practically only hits on 3s. So, the weapon is very much a solid weapon. He has a unique rule, and he has a unique special action as well. We're going to look at the unique rule first. It's called Storm Veiled Execution. Whenever this operative is within your storm, it can perform the guard action regardless of the kill zone. See Close Quarter Rules Kill Team Core Book. It can perform the guard action while it has a conceal order, but if it does, it cannot perform more than 1 shoot action for the rest of the turning point, i.e. cannot shoot both during the interruption and during counteract. So this is another unique rule that uses the Elemental Storm faction rule. You'll find obviously it's the niche for this kill team, and being within Storm, it just keeps cropping up. Now, if you are within Storm, you can go on guard regardless of the kill zone, which is always a very useful action and can be used tactically in most of the games I've played with this operative. I took this operative 3 times, and I took the Gunner operative 3 times as well. It can also do this while it has a conceal order, but if you do it while you're on conceal, then the Frosteye, can't shoot twice, and obviously he can't shoot in a counteract as well. So there are pros and cons. Like I said, I played this operative a few times, and I always put it on guard with the conceal order just to try it out. And I didn't really have any problems. It makes this model really tricky to play against, because your opponent might not know what the best option is when playing against an operative on guard with a conceal order and has a gun with the silent weapon rule. This is because if he leaves one of his operatives out as a valid target, after you've interrupted and performed the shoot action, whether you kill it or not is irrelevant, they quite often won't be able to shoot back at you because your Frosteye is now on a conceal order next to some terrain, so he's not a valid target. And I found this was really awkward for them to play against. It's not like your standard counteract where after you're left out with an engage order. So next, we're going to look at the special action for the Frosteye. It's called Hunter's Senses. It's 1 action point, and you select one of your following rules. Select one of the following rules for all profiles of this operative's instigator bolt carbine to have until the start of its next activation. So you have severe and you have saturate, and whenever this operative is shooting with that weapon, enemy operatives cannot be obscured. This operative cannot perform this action while within control range of an enemy operative. So this is really good. The really good thing about this special action is that you can still shoot twice and then counteract and get the benefit of the added weapon rule because it lasts until the start of the next activation. So if I spend 1 action point to give my instigator bolt carbine the severe weapon rule, I then spend another action point to shoot an enemy operative, and obviously I get severe. I then spend another action point to shoot at another operative in the same activation, 3 action points in 1 activation, and I get the severe weapon rule on both. And then a little bit later in the game, I counteract with him, I shoot at someone else, and I get the severe weapon rule again. So whatever one of those 2 options you choose, it lasts for the rest of the activation, and then any counteract that you'll do as well. So both of the options are good. I mean, adding the severe weapon rule means that you can activate the piercing crits 1 weapon rule much easier. And if you decide to use the other rule, then your opponent can't retain any cover saves and can't be obscured. Both of them are really useful, and it's great that you get to choose. This kill team is definitely a melee focused team, but there's no harm at all taking 1 really good gunline operative. I always do. And I'm going to give the Frosteye a super solid 4 out of 5. It has 2 really useful rules to play with, and its instigator bolt carbine isn't a massively strong weapon, but it's great against standard teams and horde teams, and being able to shoot not once but twice with a conceal order makes it really tough for your opponent to play against, and I think this is the only sniper in the game that can do that. But now let's look at the next operative for the Wolf Scout's kill team. Wolf Scout Gunner, 3 APL, 7-inch move, 3 up save and 13 wounds. His range weapon is plasma gun, has 2 profiles. The standard profile is 4 attacks, 3 up save, 4/6 damage and piercing 1. The supercharged profile is 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 5/6 damage, hop, lethal 5 up and piercing 1. And the melee weapon option is combat blade, which is 4 attacks, hitting on 3s and 4/5 damage. So it's very much a Phobos Space Marine, core stats with a standard plasma gun, and obviously the combat blade, it's 4 attacks instead of 5 attacks like you'll find on more. But he does have a special action as well, a unique action, sorry. It's called Tempestuous Fury. Whenever this operative is within your storm, all profiles of its plasma gun have the punishing weapon rule. Its plasma gun supercharge doesn't have the hot weapon rule. So, like I said earlier, I've played 3 games with the Frosteye, 3 with the gunner. I did actually do a training game where I took both, but competitive games I played at the NGC Newport Gaming Centre. In several games there, I found this a very strong gunline operative, and it's this Tempestuous Fury rule that gives it its strength. Again, it's all around the elemental storm, being within storm like practically everything else in this kill team. But I mean, on its own, the plasma gun has a really solid 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 5/6 damage. It's really, really good. But when you're within your storm, you can use the supercharged profile without having to run the risk of damaging yourself from the hot rule, which is always nice. But it does gain the punishing weapon rule, which means you can then retain one of your fails as a normal success if you roll a critical success. And also you've got the lethal 5-up weapon rule, and this means that you can effectively activate the punishing weapon rule if you roll a 5 or a 6, and that makes it really, really strong for a heavy hitting gun like a plasma gun. It really does buff it up nicely. Just remember as well, it costs 1 action point to shoot once, and obviously the second time it costs 2 action points, so you need to stay still if you want to shoot twice. If you move the operative, then obviously you can only shoot once. And finally, I mean, you can use this rule during the counteract as well. So effectively, in some games, you know, you do get up to 3 shoot actions during the same turning point. I've done that in a couple of games and it always feels really, really good. I'm going to score the Wolf Scout Gunner a super solid 4 out of 5. It's a very, very playable gunline operative. It definitely works best going against other elite kill teams, or maybe some of those standard kill teams that have like a few high wound models, you know, that have good guns of their own. But let's look at the next operative in the Wolf Scouts kill team. Wolf Scout Trapmaster. 3 APL, 7-inch move, 3 up save and 13 wounds. His range weapon is Plasma Pistol, which is a standard profile of 4 attacks hitting on 3s, 3-5 damage, range 8 inches, piercing 1, and it has a supercharged profile of 4 attacks hitting on 3s, 4-5 damage, range 8 inches, hot, lethal 5 up and piercing 1. His melee option is Combat Blade. It's 5 attacks hitting on 3s and 4-5 damage. So he's very much the standard operative with a standard plasma pistol and the standard combat blade. We've seen these before in other operatives. The Wolf Scout Trapmaster has 2 unique rules to go with him. The first is called Haywire Mine. This operative is carrying your Haywire Mine marker. It can perform the pickup marker action on that marker, but that marker cannot be placed within another operative's control range. If this operative is incapacitated while carrying that marker and that marker cannot be placed, it's removed along with this operative. So this Haywire Mine rule, it just outlines the conditions for carrying the Haywire Mine marker token, but I don't think it does a very good job, to be honest, so I'm going to try and explain it in my own words. Because myself and a few other people, you know, in the club at the NGC Newport Gaming Centre, we didn't quite understand. So it's very much the same as the Incursor mine layer, you know, in the Phobos team as well. But it states that the Trapmaster is carrying it, which means it starts the game already in its possession, and it then states it can perform the pick up marker action, but it doesn't say anything about performing the place marker action. So if you look in the core book on page 41, the place marker action clearly states that you can, open quotation, place a marker the active operative is carrying within its control range, close quotation. So this Haywire Mine rule states that the operative is carrying the marker, which means at the start of the game when you deploy it, it's carrying it in its possession, so therefore by default it can then spend an action point to use the place marker action as well. I can't see why Games Workshop didn't write it like this. I mean, open quotation, it can perform the pickup marker action and the place marker action on that marker, close quotation. It would have been so much clearer and simpler in my opinion. So yeah, he starts the game carrying it, he can perform the pickup, well, that's irrelevant, we've already got it, you know. He can also perform the place marker action as well. Bit weird. And finally, if the Trapmaster is killed, you get to perform the place marker action for 0 AP. This is in the rules again on page 41, but you must still follow the rules stating that it can't be placed, you know, in any other operative's control range. So essentially, if they charge in, fight you and kill you, you can still place the marker as long as it's not within 1 inch of that enemy operative or within 1 inch of any other operatives around you. You know, so it can be placed in a place where it can be placed, or i.e. flat on the kill zone floor and not resting on terrain at a 45-degree angle or anything like that. Now you also can't perform the place marker action in the same turning point that you perform the pickup marker action. Again, page 41 on the core book states that. So if you put the marker down in turning point 1, and then in turning point 2 you decide to pick it up and move it, but you obviously, so if you put the marker down in turning point 1 and then in turning point 2 you decide to pick it up and move it, you then can't put it back down until turning point 3. So I'm not happy with the wording of this rule by Games Workshop. Hopefully my explanation has helped, although I know it's a little bit long-winded. Now let's look at the next rule for the Trapmaster. Give me 2 seconds. There we go. Wolf Scout Trapmaster Proximity Mine. The first time your Haywire Mine marker is within another operative's control range, remove that marker. Subtract 1 from that operative's APL stat until the end of its next activation, and inflict 2d3 plus 3 damage on it, or d3 plus 6 if that marker is within 6 inches horizontally of your storm marker. If it isn't incapacitated, end its action, if any, even if that action effects aren't fulfilled. If it cannot be placed, move it the minimum amount to do so. Note that this operative is ignored for these effects, i.e. it cannot set off or take damage from that marker. So now this rule states how to use the Haywine marker as a proximity mine. So it's a little bit long-winded and complicated, but hopefully, you know, I'm helping you get there. It clearly states that after you have performed the place marker action and put the marker into the kill zone, that any time that marker is within an operative's control range, remove the marker. And obviously this applies to both friendly and enemy operatives. So your guys, you know, can set it off as well. Your own kill team could set off the marker. Obviously the Trapmaster is immune to it. He's fine going over it, but any enemy or friendly will set it off. You subtract 1 from that operative's APL stat, friendly or enemy, and you inflict 2 d3 plus 3 damage on it, or d3 plus 6 if it's within 6 inches of the storm marker. Simple. And it also finishes off saying that if it isn't incapacitated, then you end its action, even if that action effects aren't fulfilled. I think this rule's better explained than other rules, but maybe, you know, you understand it a bit better now. So using it, in my games, I used the proximity mine on several occasions. I always used it on the center objective, and I had no problems really playing it at all. I had one successful time when it scored 9 damage against a Space Marine captain who moved on to the objective at the end of the turning point to score it, and then in the start of the next turning point, I just charged in, wiped it out. It was great stuff. Once you've absorbed the rules for the Trapmaster, then you're left with a really solidly playable operative that can have a nice tactical touch to the kill zone and to the match using his mine. I'm going to score him a super solid 4 out of 5. It's a very playable and well worth taking it out to try for yourself. I definitely enjoyed playing the Trapmaster in my games. Let's look at the next operative in the Wolf Scout's kill team. Wolf Scout Ruin Priest Skjald. 3 APL, 7-inch move, 3 up save, and 13 wounds. He has a ranged weapon called Bolt Pistol, which is 4 attacks hitting on 3s, 3-4 damage in a range of 8 inches. He has another ranged weapon called Jaws of the World Wolf, 5 attacks hitting on 3s, 3-5 damage, psychic, blast 2 inches, and severe. And then he has another final range weapon called Thunderclap, which is 5 attacks hitting on 2s, 2-2 damage, psychic, range 6 inches, saturate, seek light, stun, and torrent 2. He also has a melee option called Runic Stave. It's 5 attacks hitting on 3s, 4-6 damage, psychic, and shock. So the Wolf Scout Rune Priest has, you know, a better selection of weapons than most of the operatives. Now remember, in the Hunter Astartes faction rule, it says you can only shoot with a psychic weapon once. You can't do 2 shoot actions. You can't pick the same one twice or pick one or the other. So if you wanted to shoot twice with this operative, you can pick either Jaws of the Wolf or Thunderclap, and the second shoot action must be the Bolt Pistol. And his Runic Stave is also really nice. I mean, the 4-6 damage and the shock just makes it hit, you know, better than the standard combat blade. The Wolf Scout Rune Priest has a unique rule, and he also has a unique special action as well. First, we'll look at the unique rule. It's called Cast the Runes. After selecting this operative, before the battle, roll 3d6 and put them to one side. For each result of 1 to 4, you can use the command reroll Firefight ploy for 0 CP once during the turning point that matches the result. And for each result of 5 to 6, you gain 1 command point. So for example, if you roll 2, 2 and 5, you gain 1 command point, and twice during the second turning point, you can use the command reroll Firefight ploy for 0 CP. So I found this to be useful. I used it several times and find it was fine. I mean, well, to be honest, I took this guy, the Rune Priest, every time, and obviously when you select him before the battle, you roll them. So it's really, really good. It's a nice little mechanic to use, and it can be either exceptionally helpful, yeah, or not. I had a game where I rolled the 3 dice and I scored a 2, 5 and a 6, which was really amazing. I got 2 command points instantly, which I could use for anything, putting me up to 5 at the start of the game. My opponent had won and took initiative in turning point 2, so I got 2 command points there. And then I had an extra CP, you know, for rolling the 2. So essentially, I had 8 command points to use at the start of turning point 2, which was absolutely awesome. And it was all because I'd rolled well on this cast the runes mechanic. But then in another game I rolled a 1, 1 and a 4, which was not really helpful at all. There was no opportunities to use my command reroll Firefight Ploy for 0 CP in turning point 1, so both of those dice got wasted. And yeah, I mean, I did use it on, I used in the 4th turning point, I used the 3 command point reroll or something. I mean, Cast the Ruins, it's very much hit or miss, but it's all good fun. It's nice to add it in there, you know, just for a bit of fun. It's not really that competitive, but definitely fun. He does have, like I say, the special action as well, which is called Call the Storm. It's 1 action point. Psychic, remove your storm marker from the kill zone. If any, then place it in the kill zone. And then the second option is Psychic. Alternatively, instead of resolving the above effect, select 1 friendly Wolf Scout operative until the start of this operative's next activation, until it's incapacitated or until it performs the action again, whichever comes first. Whenever that friendly operative is within your storm and more than 3 inches from this active operative, it's obscured. This operative cannot perform this action while within control range of an enemy operative. So I found Call the Storm to be very useful. I used it several times to test it out and it was absolutely fine. It does give you 2 really useful things to do. First, you can remove your storm marker from the kill zone and then place it anywhere within the kill zone. Now, you can do this in the strategy phase, but sometimes your opponent, you know, does some weird maneuvering, and you can always use this to make sure that you've got the best location for your storm marker. But generally, you don't use it that often because you can move the storm marker in the strategy phase. Secondly, though, you have this other option, which I think is a lot better. You get to select a friendly operative and then make it obscured until the start of the Rune Priest's next activation, or until the Rune Priest is incapacitated or the Rune Priest uses the action again, say for instance in a Counterattack. Now, I used this several games, a lot really, and it was used to protect my Frosteye operative or my Gunner operative. And it worked out really well because being obscured is such a strong thing in Kill Team, and it's really nice that you can pick and choose who is obscured even though there isn't any intervening heavy terrain, you know, to use as cover. So it's really good that you can select them, and it's really strong. All in all, the Rune Priest is just another operative that's very, very playable, and I would probably take him in every game I play. I'm going to score him a super solid 4 out of 5. It has really good selection of range weapons and melee weapons, and its unique rules and special actions makes it great for adding some defensive options to your kill team. Let's look at the next operative for the Wolf Scout kill team. Wolf Scout Hunter. 3 APL, 7-inch move, 3 up save and 13 wounds. He has the plasma pistol. The standard profile is 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 3/5 damage, range 8 inches, piercing 1, and the supercharged profile is 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, 4/5 damage, range 8 inches, hot, lethal 5 up, and piercing 1. The melee option is Combat Blade. It's 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, 4/5 damage. So the Wolf Scout Hunter, same stat line, plasma pistol, combat blade. We've seen those before in this video. All the other operatives we've seen up until now can only be selected once. They're what's called specialist operatives. This Wolf Scout Hunter is the one you can take numerous times. Technically, you could have 5 of these hunters, and obviously the wolf, which is mandatory as well. I don't see why you would personally. You know, the Wolf Scout specialists are better. The hunter has a unique rule. It's called Fierce Temperament. Whenever this operative is within your storm, its weapons have the severe weapon rule. So it's one of the simplest rules on any of the data cards we've seen so far in the kill tier, but I don't think this operative is going to get used very much because it's just not going to be selected. I took one hunter operative in one game just to try it out, and yeah, it was okay, but I'll always be choosing from the other specialists and I won't be taking this model again. I mean, I suppose you could try taking a bunch of these and seeing how you get on with it, but personally I don't think you should. You know, I'd just leave this one out and concentrate on the stronger operatives, and I'd build a team around that. I'm going to give this operative a mediocre but decent kind of 3 out of 5. I really just can't find enough on its data card to give it a higher score. Kill teams are all about how the operatives stack together and how their unique rules and actions synergize and how they help each other out. I don't think this operative's data card does that, and I can't see why you take one of these, let alone taking 5 of them. But let's look at the last operative in the Wolf Scouts kill team. Wolf Scout, Fenrisian, Wolf. 2 APL, 8-inch move, 5 up save and 9 wounds. There's one option, it's a melee weapon option, it's called Fangs. It's 5 attacks, hitting on 3s, 4/5 damage and rending. So this is the only mandatory operative in the Wolf Scouts kill team, and it's the only operative that isn't actually, you know, a Space Marine. The 2 APL is obviously nowhere near as good as 3, but the 8-inch move is fantastic. You've got to be careful with this operative because, you know, 5 up save and 9 wounds, you'll notice the difference. It does die easier and quicker than the other Space Marines. Now, the Fangs weapon is really good. It's essentially the same profile as a combat blade, but it has the rending weapon rule, so it's better than a combat blade. The rending means if you score a crit, then you can upgrade one of your normal successes to be a critical. And obviously, you know, you can quite often score like 2 crits and a hit, or maybe, you know, 2 crits and 2 hits. It is really strong. The Wolf Scout has 2 unique rules. We have Instinctive Predator and Pounce. What we'll do is go through Instinctive Predator first. This operative cannot perform any actions other than charge, dash, fall back, fight and reposition. It cannot use any weapons that aren't on its data card, and this operative can perform the charge action while it has a conceal order. So the rule basically is quite simple. It just describes some restrictions. You know, it clearly states what actions it can do, and obviously no other actions can be done or use any weapon that's not on its data card. That essentially means things like grenades. If you take crack grenades, you know, you can't get the wolf to throw a crack grenade. It'd be brilliant if you could. It's quite a simple rule. Now, the wolf operative does have the ability to charge while it has a conceal order. The Space Marines do not, but the Space Marines have got to be within their storm. This operative, the Wolf operative, can do it regardless of whether it's in or out the storm. It does not have to be in storm. And the reposition stat of 8 inches plus the extra 2 inches for charging means the Wolf operative has a massive threat range when it does want to charge in. And obviously the Fang's melee weapon is better than the combat blade. It really is a charge in and fight specialist. The other unique rule for the Fenrisian Wolf is called Pounce. Once per battle, strategic gambit. If this operative's APL stat is 2 or more, this operative can perform a free charge, fallback, or reposition action. If it does until the end of its next activation, subtract 1 from its APL stat, and it cannot perform any of the aforementioned actions. So, as a strategic gambit, it's obviously done in the strategy phase before the firefight phase, before we start activating. It also, allows you to move the wolf before the activations start. I mean, I've used this quite a few times. It was great fun to play in my games, but there are still some restrictions as what can be performed. I mean, it can only charge fall back and obviously use its 8-inch reposition. But yeah. You also can't do this if it's got less than 2 APL, so things like stun grades. But then again, if you take the Fangbearer, nothing in the Wolf Scouts team can be affected by those sorts of things. But if it is at 1 APL because you didn't take the Fangbearer, then it can't. It must be at 2 APL. I had some good fun with this operative in some games I played. In one game in particular, I used the Pounce rule to reposition the wolf up the kill zone in the strategy phase, and then I gave it a -1 APL token, and I left it there on conceal near some terrain because I knew I'd be going first because I'd obviously won initiative. And then in my first activation, I used the 1 APL it had left to then charge into my opponent's heavy intercessor gunner. My opponent had no option really but to fall back and try and kill the wolf, but he whiffed the roll and the wolf survived. And then in my next activation, I used the Wolf Scout Gunner to take out the Heavy Intercessor Gunner, which was out in the open with an engage order. It was great stuff. The Fenrisian Wolf Operative has got some very good abilities, and it's great for charging in and pinning down and, you know, taking an operative out of action. It's also very strong at fighting. The Fang weapon profile will kill lots of operatives in one fight. You know, I'm going to score the Wolf a super solid 5 out of 5. I think the Wolf's just a fantastic operative. The extra range, you know, and the fact that he's just so expendable, I'm going to give him a solid 5 out of 5. I mean, you've got to take him anyway. I think he's great. But this brings us to the end of the operatives available. Next, we're going to look at the faction equipment in the Wolf Scouts kill team. The Wolf Scouts faction equipment and the 4 option availables are Frost weapons, Runic charms, Talismanic trophies, and Wolfteeth necklaces. Wolf Scout faction equipment, Frost weapons. Friendly Wolf Scout operatives combat blades have the lethal 5-up weapon rule, and 1 friendly Wolf Scout pack leader operative's power weapon has the lethal 4-up weapon rule, if any. This is an immensely strong faction equipment, and it's proven to be absolutely brilliant in all the games I've played. Every operative with a combat blade melee weapon in the whole kill team gets the lethal 5-up weapon rule, and the pack leader's power weapon gets the 4-up weapon rule. Massive. So the Rune Priest and the Wolf are the only operatives that won't benefit from this equipment choice, but all the other operatives will. The Frosteye Gunner have 4 attacks on their blades, and obviously the pack leader, Fangbearer, and Hunter have 5 attacks. The lethal 5-up on the combat blades is very nice upgrade. I mean, they hit on 3s, they have 4/5 damage, so they're already a strong weapon. But the 4-up on the power weapon is just a massive upgrade. The pack leader can just about kill anything in the game. It makes him a real beatstick. I'm going to give this a maximum score of 5 out of 5. Really, this kill team prefers melee combat, and this faction equipment buffs them up and makes them hit a hell of a lot harder. It's an absolute auto include, and I would personally take it in every game you play. Let's look at the next equipment choice for Wolf Scout's kill team. Wolf Scout faction equipment, Runic charms. Once per turning point, when an operative is shooting a friendly Wolf Scout operative, excluding Fenrisian Wolf, at the start of the roll defense dice step, you can use this rule. If you do, worsen the X of the piercing weapon rule by 1, if any, until the end of that sequence. Note that piercing 1 would therefore be ignored. So lots of kill teams have some way of worsening the piercing weapon rule by 1. In the Wolf Scouts kill team, it's an equipment choice that can be used once every turning point. Now, I love using these, and when my opponent's taken the time to set up like a high damage shoot action, and he's obviously announcing with pride that it's got the piercing weapon rule, and I get to use all 3 of my defense dice because I play this. It's an absolute classic, and I really love playing these. On the negative side, it only works against range attacks, and not all kill teams have weapons with the piercing 1 weapon rule. So you have to pay close attention and research the kill team before the match, because this is absolutely useless if your opponent doesn't have the piercing 1 weapon rule on any of its operatives' data cards, or if he doesn't bring grenades. In that case, you should take something from the faction equipment choice instead of from the universal equipment. Overall, I'm going to give it a super solid 4 out of 5. When you do take it against those kill teams that do have the piercing weapon rule, it always does a really good job, and it really helps to keep your operatives alive. Wolf Scout faction equipment, Talismanic trophies. When a friendly Wolf Scout operative, excluding Fenrisian Wolf, is fighting or retaliating, in the resolve attack dice step, you can subtract 1 from the damage inflicted on it from 1 success. So I'm not a massive fan of this equipment choice personally. I think reducing one of the attacks by 1 point of damage just isn't that strong for me. Now, one of my opponents charged in and scored 1 crit for 5 damage and 1 hit for 4 damage. That totals 9 damage. So I got to reduce the first attack by 1, which was the crit. So I ended up taking 8 damage instead of 9. To me, it's just not that strong. I suppose if you're going up against a full melee team and all they're going to do is charge into you and fight, and there's going to be a ton of fighting and retaliating, then it might add up over the course of the whole game to make quite a small and reasonable difference. Against the average team that has some shoot attacks, or and a team that relies heavily on guns, it's absolutely really useful, and I take some barricades or grenades instead. I'm going to score this a mediocre 3 out of 5. Like I say, if you are going up against a melee team, or you yourself have put together a Wolf Scouts team, with no gunline operatives, a pure melee build, and there's loads of fighting to be done, then, it should come in useful sometimes, and it will offer some help over the course of the game. But let's look at the next faction equipment for Wolf Scouts Kill Team. Wolf Scout faction equipment, Wolfteeth necklaces. Once per turning point, when a friendly Wolf Scout operative, excluding Fenrisian Wolf, is shooting, fighting or retaliating, if you roll 2 or more fails, you can discard one of them to retain another as a normal success instead. So this is a really good equipment choice, and along with the frost weapons, I would take this in every game. It's a really simple rule, and you can use it to save on command points. You can use it once per turning point as well, and I use mine, in nearly every turning point I played, except sometimes not in the first because I didn't get many valid targets. But it works whether you're shooting, fighting or retaliating, and if you make 2 or more fails, if you roll 5 dice and only 2 of them, you have 3 fails, then you can discard one of them and retain one as a normal success. So this has bailed me out of trouble in an endless amount of situations when I'm fighting, shooting. It's always proven to be useful in practically every single game I've played. I'm going to score a maximum 5 out of 5. You really should take this every time you play with the Wolf Scouts Kill Team. It's absolutely brilliant. Now this brings us to the end of the faction equipment. Next we're going to look at the strategy ploys available for the Wolf Scouts Kill Team. Wolf Scouts strategy ploy. As always, we've got 4 to choose from. We have Cloaked by the Storm, Savage Fighters, Storm's Bite, and Tempestuous Wrath. Wolf Scout strategy ploy, Cloaked by the Storm. Whenever an operative is shooting a friendly Wolf Scout operative that's within your storm, you can re-roll one of your defense dice. So, this is potentially a really strong ploy to use against an opponent that's playing a gunline team. It allows every one of your operatives, this includes the wolf as well, to re-roll one of your failed defense dice. Or you can re-roll a normal success to try and get a critical if you need one to survive. Now this only works when you're within your storm, but the effect radius on the storm is huge at 12.78 inches, so it's quite often all right. Now I've used this quite a few times when I play, if I have a CP available. Now the only real caveat I found to this is that the Wolf Scouts can charge on a conceal order when they are within their storm. So if you keep them behind terrain or barricades and you're lining them up for charges, then your opponent won't get many shoot opportunities because they're on conceal most of the time and they're not valid targets. But I can't give this because the Wolf Scouts team is all about making use of the Elemental Storm faction rule. One of the key things, like I say, is charging from conceal. But there will be times after you've charged in that you leave some of those opponents out in the open with a conceal order. And there'll also be some times when your operatives with guns have failed to kill their targets and they're left out in the open with an engage order. So in those situations, it's definitely worth a command point. I'm going to score this a 4 out of 5. There were times that it proved useful and it was really helpful, but in most of the strategy phases, there just weren't enough operatives at risk from enemy gunfire, to warrant spending a command point on it. But when I did play it, the outcome was always very strong. Let's look at the next strategy ploy for the Kill Team Wolf Scouts. Wolf Scout strategy ploy, Savage Fighters. Whenever a friendly Wolf Scout operative finishes fighting or retaliating, if it wasn't incapacitated, you can inflict D3 +1 damage on the enemy operative in that sequence. This is just another opportunity to make your melee operatives dish out some more damage. It can make a really big difference to those fight and retaliate actions, and I've used this one on lots of occasions. When I have lots of enemy operatives within, charge range of my operatives, and I want to go out all blades blazing and score some kill points and clear some objectives. I found this generally works best when played in the later stages of the match, like turning point 3 or turning point 4, because in the earlier turning points there just aren't enough melee combat opportunities to warrant spending a command point on it. This is just another useful way to make this kill team excel at close range combat. I'm going to score this a 4 out of 5. It is incredibly strong when you have good situations to use it, but unfortunately you might not get to use it every single game because command points are a limited resource and we have to manage them accordingly. Wolf Scout strategy ploy, Storm's Bite. Whenever an enemy operative is within your storm, subtract 1 from the attack stat of its melee weapons to a minimum of 3. This is another really strong strategy ploy to play that helps to reduce the incoming damage from melee attacks when your opponent operatives are within your storm. It reduces the number of attacks dice by 1 down to a minimum of 3. So, if your opponent had 5 attack dice on his data card, he now gets reduced down to 4. And if it had 4 attack dice, reduced down to 3. But if he had 3 attack dice, it stays at 3 because it's a minimum of 3. I love playing this strategy ploy, and I found that it's really, really effective, and it gets right up my opponent's nose. It really gets on their nerves. It's just another thing in this kill team that helps keeping them alive and winning in melee combat. I'm going to score this a super solid 4 out of 5 because it's brilliant in melee combat, but it does nothing for range combat, so I can't give it a maximum score. But it's playable in lots of games, and you should always be checking how many fights are probably going to happen in the next turning point. And if it's looking like it's going to turn into a brawl, then you really should spend a command point on this if you can afford to do so. Wolf Scout strategy ploy, Tempestuous Wrath. Whenever a friendly Wolf Scout operative is fighting or retaliating, if it's within your storm or was within your storm at the start of the activation, its melee weapons have the balanced weapon rule. If you're like me, then you love to make rerolls, and they're just an awesome part of skirmish dice gaming. There are lots of kill teams that have some sort of option to make rerolls, and in this Wolf Scout's kill team, it's this strategy ploy. Again, it all revolves around being within your storm, like so many things with this kill team, and the balanced weapon rule allows them to re-roll one of their defense dice. It's a simple enough ploy, and I've had no problems using it in any of the games I've played. You can make a massive amount of CP savings with this strategy ploy. I've had games where I've performed up to 8 different fight and retaliations during my activations and counteracts. If I paid for a command reroll in each of those activations separately, each of those actions separately, then it would have cost me 8 command points. So I'm going to score this a super solid 4 out of 5. You have a lot of CP options, a lot of saving CP options with this. And if you intend to go out on the offensive, then you really should consider spending a CP on this if you can afford to do so. Now this brings us to the end of the strategy ploys. Next, let's look at the firefight ploys for the Wolf Scouts kill team. Wolf Scout firefight ploys, and the 4 to choose from are Acute Senses, Counterattack, Touched by Lokyar, Transhuman, Physiology. Wolf Scout firefight ploy, Acute Senses. Use this firefight ploy when a friendly Wolf Scout operative performs the shoot action and you're selecting a valid target. Until the end of that action, that friendly operative's range weapons have the range 6 inches and seek light weapon rule, and enemy operatives cannot be obscured. This is a great buff for picking out an enemy operative that's staying back and trying to hide behind some cover. You can spend 1 command point to add Seek Light Weapon rule to your operative's data card and also remove the effects of obscuring, but you do have to add the range 6 inches. But if you position your operatives properly, then it shouldn't really be that much of a problem. I've had quite a lot of games where I've taken the Wolf Scout Gunner operative. He has a very strong weapon that can dish out tons of damage, and if my opponents have brought some light barricades or something, or for their operatives to hide behind, I can reposition up close, and I can spend a command point on this ploy to light them up with some super hot plasma. I'm going to score this a 4 out of 5. There are not many options to enhance your shooting in this kill team, so having this at your disposal is a really big asset, and you can make it difficult for your opponent to strategically hide their operatives. Wolf Scout Firefight ploy, Counterattack. Use this Firefight ploy at the end of an enemy operative's activation or after an enemy operative performs the fight action. One friendly Wolf Scout operative can immediately perform a free fight action, but you cannot select any other enemy operative to fight against during that action. I had a game where my opponent tried to charge in and fight my Rune Priest operative that was expended and had also done a counteract. He failed to kill the Rune Priest and left it on a few wounds, and his Assault Intercessor Warrior was left with just 1 wound remaining. So rather than leave it there until the next turning point, I decided to spend a CP on this Firefight ploy to perform a free fight action, and I only had to strike him once to kill him off. I scored 2 crits and a hit and smacked him for 6 damage with my Runic Stave, scored the kill point, and that was really good. Now, there aren't that many examples like that. That's why I'm only going to score this a mediocre 3 out of 5. But there will be times when using this is useful towards the end of a turning point, and most of your operatives are expended and done counteracts. But they don't happen very often, and what you'll find is there isn't much playing this quite a lot in your games, but it is nice that it's there to use from time to time. Wolf Scout Firefight ploy, Touched by Lokyar. Use this Firefight ploy after rolling your attack dice for a friendly Wolf Scout's operative, excluding Fenrisian Wolf. If it's fighting more than 5 inches away from other friendly operatives, you can re-roll any of your attack dice. I've used this ploy in every game I've played, and it's absolutely brilliant. There's nothing better than being able to re-roll all of your attack dice if you completely whiff a roll, or if you just certainly want something dead. The only real downside to this is that you have to be more than 5 inches away from any of your other Wolf Scout operatives, so using this on an operative that's within your storm can be quite tricky sometimes, because a lot of them are in there quite densely packed together and you won't be able to play it. It happened to me on quite a few occasions, and also you can't use it on the Wolf, which is just a damn shame, because giving that beast a full reroll would make him super killy. The most success I've had is when I was performing shoot actions with this operative, and my gunline operatives were being kept back from the action in good positions with good lines of sight across the kill zone. Then I didn't have to worry about them being, within 5 inches of other friendly models. I'm going to score this a super solid 4 out of 5. It is very powerful when you use it, but the 5 inches away from other operatives rule stops it from getting a maximum score. Let's look at the next Firefight ploy for the Kill Team Wolf Scouts. Wolf Scout Firefight ploy, Transhuman, Physiology. Use this Firefight ploy when an operative is shooting a friendly Wolf Scout operative, excluding Fenrisian Wolf. In the roll defense dice step, you can retain one of your normal successes as a critical success instead. When I first saw this Firefight ploy, it was in another kill team. I think it was the Angels of Death, and I didn't actually think it was any good, and I thought it was really, really bad. But the more I've played using elite teams, then the more I've found that it is actually quite useful. You will find that on lots of occasions, being able to upgrade a hit to a crit for a command point is really, quite useful, because you have to make obviously 2 hits to double them up to save a crit, and you can actually get a big damage reduction when that operative is rolling its defense dice. On the downside though, it does nothing for retaliating or fighting, so it's only useful when you're being shot at. If your opponent has a melee team like Raveners, it's not going to get used that much at all, but against a gunline team, it is really useful. I'm going to score Transhuman Physiology a mediocre 3 out of 5, because it isn't playable all the time, but when you do play it during your defense, it can prove to be very useful sometimes at keeping your operatives alive. That brings us to the end of the Firefight Ploys, and we're nearly at the end of the video. Next, I'm going to leave you with my final verdict on the Wolf Scouts kill team. The Wolf Scouts are an Elite 6 operative kill team, and they have two extremely strong faction rules that make the Wolf Scouts an absolute powerhouse melee team when they're within their storm. You can't really build a gunline team with Wolf Scouts because there are only 3 operatives with ranged weapons, but you can build a very good mixed team quite easily. But I think, you know, a melee focused team is the absolute best. My favourite team selection is a mixed team that focuses towards melee, but it still has, you know, a bit of range firepower. I went for the Pack Leader, Fangbearer, Rune Priest, Trapmaster, Gunner, and Fenrisian Wolf. The Storm mechanic is great fun, and personally I think it's a little too overstrong at the moment, and it will get nerfed down a bit at the next errata and the balance update. I think they'll change it so that the operatives have to be wholly within the Storm, so it reduces the size of it a bit, and I think they'll change some of the strategy ploys, because currently playing 3 of them will make your kill team incredibly overpowering for that turning point. The faction equipment and ploys do help this kill team to become, you know, competitive, and they will help to win more games. But like I say, they do tend towards melee builds, but I think the list that I take is best for getting the most out of the ploys. Most of them are simple enough, and you won't require too much thinking or practicing. They're relatively straightforward. On the positive side, at the minute, I mean, using the 3 strategy ploys, which are Savage Fighters, Stormbite and Tempestuous Wrath, is just ridiculous at how hard this kill team hits and how much they reduce the incoming damage as well. All, you know, with conceal orders inside the Storm. It's seriously overpowered buff. But what I do, you see, is I just save 3 command points at the start of the game. Then usually in turning point 2, I just play all 3 of those and go out on the all-out attack. It's great fun, but like I say, I don't think it will last forever, and I think it will get nerfed down pretty quickly. Now, some of my favourite mentions really are all of them except the Hunter, that doesn't stand out at all. But I think that every operative in this kill team has got quite a lot of character. The sculpts are brilliant, and it's just really, really good. All of the data cards have got a good synergism and stackability. They all work together lovely to make a strong, but like I say, melee-focused kill team that needs to be, you know, within its little Storm bubble. But it's a fantastically fun kill team to play. The only real negative side, I think, is the lack of a gunline team for those who like to take guns. I mean, the best gunline team I could come up with was the Frosteye, the Gunner, and the Rune Priest, because they have ranged weapons that can shoot across the whole kill zone. And then obviously you have to take the Wolf, and then it's down to you, you know, from the best of the rest. But it still relies on melee combat to stand a chance of winning your games. All in all, they are a kill team that loves to be on conceal, and when they're on conceal within this Storm and, you know, moving in and out of enemy operatives' territory, taking the fight to them, and sometimes just waiting for them to come charging in to their Storm. I mean, there are some crazy strong buffs with all the ploys that can give to them, you know, and just remember to keep the Gunner operative quite far back and in an ideal position, and make sure you save the Firefight ploy with the full reroll for him so he can assist and support the team. I've had 6 super fun games with this kill team, and several little P versus E, you know, player versus environment practice games. And my final score for the Wolf Scouts kill team is a maximum fun factor of 5 out of 5. I've had a great time making this video. Thanks for watching Let's Get Critical. Have a great day. Bye bye.